Hello, everyone. My name is Mike, and this is the Bored Cyborg. Do you guys like to watch animals eviscerate stupid human beings? I know I do. Welcome back to yet another video. This time I'm doing another list in the form of a top 10 of my favorite killer animal movies. Now, this list actually proved more difficult than I imagined it to be, mostly because I didn't know where to draw the line for certain things. So I have a couple rules to lay out. For me, this is just me personally. It has to be a real animal that exists or has existed. Can't be a monster or a creature that or an alien or anything like that. It has to be an actual animal. Also excluded from this list is King Kong. I had a lot of trouble with this because I didn't know if this counted in my mind, and I came to the conclusion that it doesn't because it's not quite nature run amok. He has feelings, human-like feelings for a woman in the story, whereas every other film in my list, nature doesn't give a about humans. They want to eat humans, they want to survive, they want to rule. So that is sort of my criteria for this list, and I'm also doing it in preparation and excitement for Crawl, which is an original horror film, oh my god, an original film in 2019 in the summer by Alexandre Aja, and I'm really looking forward to that movie, so let's dig right into my list. I do have 5 honorable mentions. So the first one, real quick, I'm going to run through these. Arachnophobia. It's about a killer Venezuelan spider who gets transported to a small American town, and they start breeding and wreaking havoc, and it's like a slasher. They're killing people one by one. John Goodman as the exterminator is fantastic. You've also got Jeff Daniels, and just a great cast. It's got adventure vibes to it. Of course, it's Frank Marshall, and I just love Arachnophobia, a film that my mother could not watch when I was a kid, still can't. I loved it, still love it. That is Arachnophobia. Next one is Joe Dante's Piranha. This is just a cult classic, grindhouse sort of film by Joe Dante, who loves small critters, and in this case, piranhas that eat flesh. And it's just a fun movie that doesn't take itself too seriously. I think it's from '78, and I even like the remake, which I believe Alexandre Aja did, or Aja, again, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but yeah, that is Piranha. So, Joe Dante, can't go wrong with that. Next up is Nightwing. This is on a cool double feature with Shadow of the Hawk as well, which I haven't seen. Nightwing is an Native American mysticism killer bat, vampire bat movie that is post-Jaws, so it kind of has the same sort of setup, but it's about a young Native American man who's played by an Italian-American actor, or an Italian-Canadian actor, and he does a great job despite not being Native American. There are real Native Americans in this film. It has a lot of culture kind of permeating it. David Warner's in this movie. It's got some great moments, some trippy moments, really cool. Killer vampire bat with Native American mysticism. Check this one out. Arthur Hiller. It's a really cool movie, and this is a cheap double feature, so pick it up. And then last but not least, I'm going to pair a couple films together here for the last 2 honorable mentions. Lake Placid and Anaconda. I don't own Anaconda somehow. 2 movies I saw when they came out. Not in the theaters, but I saw them with the family when they came out, and I absolutely loved them. They are very similar in setup, but Lake Placid, giant crocodile or alligator, great cast, Bill Pullman, Bridget Fonda, Oliver Platt, memorable characters, fun movie. Betty White's in this as a dirty talking old woman who takes no shit, and she doesn't want to leave her home. But great movie with some fantastic effects, directed by Steve Miner, who did Friday the 13th, 2 and 3 most famously. Lake Placid, Anaconda, another ensemble cast. You got Ice Cube, J-Lo, John Voight, memorable characters, a fun adventure killer animal movie about a giant anaconda, obviously, and 2 movies I'm very nostalgic for that didn't quite make the cut because I've seen close to 40 killer animal movies. When I'm compiling these lists, it always blows my mind how many of these certain types of movies I've seen. So, let's get into the countdown. So, number 10 is a film that not a lot of people talk about, and that is a George Cosmatos film, the guy who did Tombstone and Cobra, some great 80s flicks. This is one of them. Nobody talks about, Of Unknown Origin. I love this movie. This is Peter Weller coming back and teaming up with, well, actually, this was before Leviathan. Cosmatos also did that. And Peter Weller is fantastic in this as a man, a Wall Street, Wall Street guy. Sorry, it's been a while. Wall Street guy who is being tortured. He lives alone in his apartment, in his home, and he's being tortured by this giant rat in the walls. And we don't get many glimpses at the rat till the end, but it's perfect. It's a perfect, like, paranoia thriller. You don't know if the rat's real, if it's all in this guy's head, if he's going crazy, and he ends up going crazy, smashing the walls looking for this rat that is just causing a racket and literally just making him suffer. And it is such a fun movie, paced really well. George Cosmatos is such an underrated director, 80s director, early 90s, awesome movie, darkly comic too, very, very darkly humorous, just fun as hell. Of unknown origin. Next one up is a disgusting movie from 1976, directed by another underrated director, Jeff Lieberman. That is Squirm. Ugh, this movie is gross as shit, but I love it. It's a sort of a post-Jaws sort of film. It's directed by Jeff Lieberman, like I said, and Jeff Lieberman, he's known for cult films like Blue Sunshine, also Satan's Little Helper, a couple other films that I can't think of off the top of my head, but a lot of his movies I really enjoy. He's got a keen sense of dark humor, and he's good behind the camera, a really solid genre director. And Squirm, if you haven't guessed already by the title, which is such a great title, and the disgusting cover here, Squirm is about killer radioactive worms, just earthworms that are just slimy and disgusting, and they have these pincers, and there's these close-up shots of them with these fucking vampire fangs, and it's so gross, and it'll make your skin crawl in all the right ways. There's great makeup in this movie. It's got a great scene on a boat where this dude has worms just coming out of his face, just leaking from his face, like trying to burrow in to his skull. This is a film actually that Stallone was supposed to be in before he dropped out for something else at the time. I think he was getting too popular because of Rocky. But I remember reading that Stallone was supposed to be in this. Another cool fact about this movie is they pretty much drained the Northeast of earthworms, of a particular type of earthworms, to the point where they were messing with the ecological balance in the Northeast because they had bought up all the earthworms. And it's disgusting. I don't agree with doing that for a film, but in 76, it was okay. You know, I don't condone it, but it is what it is. It's on celluloid. There are scenes with what seems like millions of worms. It's disgusting. It ain't for the squeamish. Squirm. Alright, my number 8 is a film from 1986, released by one of my favorite production companies ever in all of cinema, Canon Pictures. It's not an action movie, it's a horror film, it's a killer animal film, directed by Richard Franklin, called Link. Link is madness. This movie is crazy. Terrence Stamp's character and a young Elizabeth Shue, who is her student, and I believe they're studying primatology, and I know Terrence Stamp's character is all about chimps, and he's studying chimps, and up at his remote villa, he has 3 chimps that he sort of cares for and studies. What ends up happening is Elizabeth Shue gets invited to this house. Terrence Stamp's character, like I said, he watches over these chimps, and one of the chimps acts out and flips out, starts to get violent, and Terrence Stamp's character has to euthanize the chimp. The chimp doesn't want to be euthanized. No shit, right? So the chimp goes crazy and starts killing everyone that it could. It's freaking out. Elizabeth Shue's character's up at the villa by herself at this point, doesn't know where the doctor is, and her friends and her boyfriend come to look for her, basically just to come up there to get killed by the chimp named Link. Now that leads me to Link, the actual chimp. The chimp actor is fucking unbelievably good. I have no clue how they got this chimp to act the way it did, and how they directed it. It's unbelievable. It's so natural, the things that Link does and the things that he's directed to do. and you feel for Link at certain points because of his facial expressions. You feel empathy, but then he's crazy. He's trying to kill everyone, and the finale is insane. I can't give away too many spoilers because it's one you have to see to believe. I had heard about this movie for years, and I was like, yeah, it's probably, a pretty good Killer Chimp movie. No, this is the Killer Chimp movie. This movie's insane. Those are the words to describe it. Completely insane and off the wall. Great performances by the chimps and Terrence Stamp and Elizabeth Shue. It's a canon horror movie. It's crazy. Check out Link. I don't know what else to say about it without spoiling it. Link. Next up is probably the most interesting film on the list in terms of its creativity and how off the beaten path it is and how much it really blew my mind. This is Phase 4. Now, this is about killer ants, but not in the sense you'd think. It's more of an alien invasion killer ant sort of movie. So what happens is through the things that humans are doing to the planet, a certain species of ant in the desert begin to evolve rapidly. And 2 men are stationed in this desert to sort of observe the ants, watch their evolution, their behavior, and see what's going on with them, to learn from them and study from them. Now, this is a film from 1973, and Michael Murphy is in it. He was not big in the 70s. He was in, what's the film? Oh my goodness. The vampire film. Count Yorga. Of course, Count Yorga. And it follows these 2 guys just watching these ants, and these ants are building these nests, which actually some termites and some ants do in Africa, I believe. They build these nests that are just like 100 feet high, maybe not that high, 40, 50 feet high. There's these great shots, great cinematography of these ant hills, and these ants are just basically trying to take over the world because their intelligence is through the roof. Like I said, they're rapidly evolving, and there's some great up close cinematography of these ants in their nests. I don't know how they got a lot of these shots. It baffles the mind. They're all in slow motion, creepy slow motion with amplified sound effects. I'm actually really interested in myrmecology, the study of ants. I've read a bunch of books on them. They're fascinating creatures, and this film takes a lot of the ideas that we have about what ants are as a superorganism. Basically, they all work as a unit. It's basically one superorganism, and it's just a fascinating film that plays out like an alien invasion film in a lot of ways because they're plotting to take over the planet in weird and obscure ways. It's really, really cool. So different. Like I said, the most different film out of all the films on this list. Highly recommend this. It's directed by Saul Bass, who is most known as a graphic designer for tons of films. The Man with the Golden Arm, Anatomy of a Murder. He worked with Hitchcock quite a bit. Saul Bass does such a great job. I don't think he directed anything else. I could be wrong. I'll have to verify that. Great cinematography in Phase 4. Great performances. Creepy score. Just an underlying eeriness and dread to the whole film. Such a weird movie. Such a cool movie. I'm so glad it got a Blu-ray release. Phase 4. Check it out. Alright, so my number 6 is a film by John Bud Cardos, who did films like The Dark and a lot of really low-budget, shitty films. This is a low-budget film, but it ain't shitty. It's a B-movie, don't get me wrong, but it is fantastic. That is William Shatner in Kingdom of the Spiders. William Shatner plays a character named Rack Hansen. One of the best names in horror history, Rack Hansen. And he plays a veterinarian who gets called into this ranch where cattle are dropping dead for no apparent reason. They can't figure out why. They find this mound, this hill, this nest of giant tarantulas. I mean, not to the extent they're real tarantulas. They're naturally real tarantulas. They're not in front of a green screen. It's just big-ass spiders. In this case, tarantulas. And it turns out that these highly venomous tarantulas are the things that are making the cattle drop dead. And eventually, soon thereafter, they start making humans drop dead. And it gets so insane, guys. These actors in the 70s had tarantulas on their face. William Shatner has shots of tarantulas on his body, on his face, all over their bodies. Real tarantulas. There are a few shots where I noticed that there were some puppets, you know, usually when it was a bunch of them in the distance and it wasn't a big deal. Like, the forefront always had real tarantulas, but I noticed some fake ones thrown in here and there. This movie is crazy, some of the shit they had these actors do. What elevates this movie to absolute greatness, in my opinion, honestly, greatness, is William Shatner. He is being so William Shatner, even more so in this than in Star Trek. It's insane how Shatner he is. And it's perfect. He's the perfect person for this sort of story where things are just so out of hand and he's like, he can't believe it. I'm not even going to attempt a William Shatner. Tarantulas. Spiders. There are giant spiders everywhere. That's my best impression. Not very good. But guys, check this out. Bud Cardos isn't known for making great films. I've seen some of them. They're not very good. This is awesome. And it has a killer Twilight Zone-esque twist that just 70s as hell, hopeless ending, final shot that'll just give you chills and you'll remember it for time to come. I'll remember it forever. This is a cult classic through and through. Goddamn. Check out my number 6 film on this list, Kingdom of the Spiders. Even better than Arachnophobia. I said it. Alright, now we're getting into some more obvious choices. You know, I like to go off the beaten path, but the list forms how it forms. And of course, we're getting into some heavy hitters here. And in this case, pretty much the film that started the Nature Strikes Back genre, the killer animals genre. There were films before, even some that I'll talk about, but that is The Birds. Now, this is the Alfred Hitchcock collection, obviously, but The Birds is in this set. Now, I grew up watching Alfred Hitchcock films thanks to my mom. My father always watched the action and the obscure and the weird horror movies and stuff. Alfred Hitchcock came from my mother. She showed me Vertigo and The Birds and Psycho when I was very young, left an impression on me, and it was always fun pointing out where Alfred Hitchcock was in the shots. In The Birds, he's there very early. The Birds. Everybody knows The Birds. It's one of Hitchcock's, definitely top 10 for me in Hitchcock's filmography. Absolutely love the movie. It's masterfully done. It makes an everyday thing. You hear it all day long. You see them all day long. Birds, they're all around us. And in this film, they congregate, they plot attacks, and they kill human beings. And there weren't many films like this. Without this film, we don't have other big heavy hitters that came a little bit later in the 70s. The Birds is remarkable. Fantastic soundtrack, fantastic acting. The cast is wonderful. The cinematography is great. Even the cinematography with The Birds, some of it is a little shoddy nowadays with some questionable, obvious rear screen projection and green screen sort of things going on. This is a color film, and The Birds is just suspense at its finest. The last act that takes place in the house, the tension racks up more and more and more. I love this movie. I watched it about a year ago again with my mom just to kind of relive old memories. She still loved it. It still made her scream and gave her those thrills that it did, I'm sure, when she was a kid, and that it did when I was a kid. So I'm very nostalgically attached to this film. And what else can you say about the movie? The Birds, 1963, Alfred Hitchcock, the master, has to be on this list. It is on this list. It's my number 5. Can't go wrong with The Birds. Next up is a film that a lot of people are probably going to give me shit for putting ahead of The Birds, but I can't help myself. I love this movie. John Frankenheimer's The Prophecy. The Prophecy is crazy. Stephen King has been quoted as saying that The Prophecy is one of his favorite horror movies, and it's also one of mine. The Prophecy follows a ecological agent of sort of one of the people that makes sure things are, like, pollution is in check and things aren't getting too out of hand in certain areas. And it's him and his wife. The actors are Robert Foxworth and Talia Shire, actually. And this is from 79, by the way, so post-Rocky. And they do a great job, and it follows them. Basically, this paper mill is polluting into the ocean, and it's created this giant mutated bear, allegedly. The bear's eating the fish from the ocean that is polluted and radioactive and disgusting and all that good stuff, and the bear becomes this mutated, fleshy, weird creature that doesn't really even resemble a bear. It's like a monster, essentially, but I'm including it on this list because it technically is a mutated bear. It's the silliest costume you'll ever see. Frankenheimer is one of the best directors of all time. Seconds, The Train, Ronin, one of my favorite directors of all time. I love the man's work. This is him doing horror, and it's not really his genre. It's well done, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't quite know how to shoot the bear. Because there are some ridiculous shots that just make this bear look so stupid. And this movie is so much fun, guys. I can't talk about it with a straight face. Robert Foxworth and Talia Shire are out in the woods writing this report about the paper mill's impact on the environment, and people start getting f***ed up. People start getting eaten up by this bear, mauled by this giant bear. Wonderfully shot, except for the bear. Great music, great atmosphere. It's just a B movie through and through. And it's a B movie by a director who is an A-list director, so it's really interesting in that sense. There's one scene I have to talk about real quick. It is the famous sleeping bag scene. You've probably seen it before on YouTube or a meme or a GIF or something. There's this moment in the film where this bear wreaks havoc on a camp, like a camp of people that are just going to sleep for the night. And he wreaks havoc. There's this one guy who's in like a sleeping bag, head to toe. His face is only showing. And he's hopping around, trying to get away from this bear like he's like a giant banana. And the bear, a terribly shot scene, swipes at him, and all of a sudden this sleeping bag just shoots across the screen and into this tree, and poof, into an explosion of feathers, and it is just the most ridiculous thing you will ever see. There's just feathers everywhere. It's wonderful. If you don't want to watch the film, watch that scene. There's some really cool split diopter work in this and some scenes that Frankenheimer does his best to make suspenseful, but this one is so bad that it's good. So bad that it's fantastic. It's not even bad, and it's such a unique movie. Check it out. I can't even describe what this movie is because it's so in a class of its own. Oh my god, guys. Check out Prophecy. It's my number 4. It's my number 4. I love this movie. Next up, we have a pretty obvious one. One that is on most of these sorts of lists, and I can't help myself. It's a masterpiece. Jaws. Everybody knows Jaws. Everybody loves Jaws. So do I. But it's not my number 1 or my number 2. So stay tuned for that. Jaws, what can be said about Jaws that hasn't already been said? Jaws is about a killer shark who wreaks havoc at this beach in the summer. Experts want to get the beach shut down because this shark is dangerous. The businessmen don't want to shut the beach down for obvious reasons because this is their busy season. Perfect setup. And the star of this movie is Jaws the shark. If you want to call him Jaws, I guess later on he would be called Jaws. That's what we all refer to him as. He's the star of the show. The model still looks great. Spielberg knew what he was doing. He knew how to shoot the damn thing, and it still holds up remarkably. But honestly, what makes this film so special is the chemistry between the three main characters, played by Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, and Roy Scheider. Everybody knows the scene of them in the cabin at night, waiting for this shark. They're all getting drunk, and they're all singing to each other and just having a male bonding moment that is so beautiful. And it's the calm before the storm in the perfect cinematic way, because we all know what happens. Jaws crashes their party. Shit gets real. They know Jaws is no joke. The film is so perfectly held together by these three characters and their camaraderie, and you really, really care about them. And they're all so different. Jaws is the star here, but man, if it wasn't for those three characters and those three actors that are just brilliant together, Jaws wouldn't be what it is. This film is a masterclass, guys. I mean, the way it's framed, the way the blocking of the characters, just everything about Jaws is awesome. but it's not my number 1 or my number 2. My number 2, I don't have to move this, because it's also in the Spielberg set. That is Jurassic Park. Now, some may say, well, I don't know, Jurassic Park, killer animal movie. You know what? It is a killer animal movie, in my opinion, because just because dinosaurs don't exist now doesn't mean they didn't. They did. They were a real thing. And like I said, my criteria, animals that exist now or did exist, Jurassic Park has to be on this list. I could talk about Jurassic Park for hours. I don't even know where to start. John Williams' score, sweeping, beautiful, epic. The characters, so memorable. The children are memorable. They're never annoying. Sam Neill, in the role of his career. I love Sam Neill. I love him in everything he does almost, especially genre flicks. The special effects, oh my god. The melding of the practical with early CG is masterfully done by Spielberg, and honestly, hasn't even been matched to this day. Maybe it's been matched, but never exceeded. It's shot perfectly. It's lit perfectly. They know what they're doing. There are some shots of the brontosauruses, things like that are in daylight, which don't hold up as well as the Tyrannosaurus shots at night with the rain. That scene, which is it's mostly void of music, that scene is one of the most tense and well-constructed sequences in any film ever, in my opinion. Where the T-Rex is stalking them for the first time, and that roar, oh, goosebumps. Oh, I love Jurassic Park, guys. Such a wonderful film, great chemistry between the characters. Jeff Goldblum, I didn't even mention, in, again, the role of his career. This film messed me up as a kid, scared me shitless. The scene where the lamb or the sheep gets placed into the trees and eaten up by something that we don't see yet, follows Richard Attenborough's character John Hammond, who's a multimillionaire and an entrepreneur, and he's also insane and wants to bring back dinosaurs from old fossils, old amber, actually mosquitoes in amber that have the blood and DNA of these dinosaurs. He rebuilds them and creates an amusement park with these creatures, with these animals, these dinosaurs roaming freely. Obviously, things get out of hand, classically. I don't even have to talk about the plot, you all know it, but it's one of the greatest films of all time, one of the greatest technical achievements of all time, and one of Spielberg's best, and my number 2 on this list, Jurassic Park. I love it. What could be my number 1? I bet you it's one that you don't see coming. My favorite killer animal film of all time, and I haven't opened the Blu-ray yet, which I'm ashamed of. I got it pretty recently. Gordon Douglas's Them. About giant killer ants. Big-ass ants. I mean, not building-sized ants, but big f***ing ants. Practical effects that will still thrill you to this day. Some may call them cheesy. I don't. I think they're awesome. The puppetry is fantastic. The model work is wonderful. James Arness is in this. Why do I love this film so much? I love this film because of its pacing, its atmosphere, its effects. It epitomizes the 50s for me. This is a 50s film through and through. Post-war, post-World War II, the nuclear age. This was the film that kicked off the nuclear mutated animals and insects, giant insects. Most of them later on would be in front of green screens and things like that with real animals. This is how I prefer it. No fucking green screens. Actual models of ants that they built. Another reason why I love this movie is because of how ahead of its time it is in terms of the action and what is being said. This film reminds me so much of Aliens, and that is one of the reasons why I love it so much. It predates Aliens, obviously, by 33 years, and there are so many parallels between Aliens and this. For example, the little girl who they find in the beginning in Them is catatonic. She's in shock because of what she saw, and of course they don't believe her. She can't speak because she's just totally in shock. That reminds me of Newt, obviously. James Cameron had to have been thinking of Them when he made Aliens. So Newt in Aliens, same kind of deal. She saw something. They can't quite crack the egg. They don't know. They can't get her to talk, but they know, Ripley knows she saw something. There's a similar character in Them that plays that sort of role. And the film's exposition is done very well in sort of a not unlike the Americanized Godzilla, but this did it way before and in such a better way, where there are newscasts and radio sort of things that are telling you what's going on with these ants, and it just creates scope and scale. It's epic, and the finale elevates this film to a perfect 5 in my book. The finale that takes place in the Los Angeles spillways, where they find the nest, the main nest. The cool thing is there's some myrmecology in here where the queen actually flies when her nest is in danger, and then lands somewhere, breeds again, moves on, breeds again. Wonderful concept, and it culminates in this battle with flamethrowers in this nest where they're flaming the ants like aliens, and it's just a spectacle. That's the thing about them. It is a spectacle from 1954, the same year that Godzilla came out. I love both equally. Godzilla's obviously not on this list. That's kaiju, that's giant monster, that's a little different. Yes, these are giant ants, and yes, this is my favorite killer animal movie. I love them from 1954. If you haven't seen it, you gotta give this one a whirl. This was released by Warner Brothers on Blu-ray. I can't wait to watch this on Blu-ray. I've never seen it on Blu-ray. Obviously, it's still sealed, like I said. Guys, I can go on and on about a lot of the films in this list, but that's my number 1, them. I just want to thank you guys for checking out my top 10 list of killer animal movies. I'm dying to know what your top 10 looks like, so feel free to leave that in the comments below. Let me know what you think about my list, where you would put some of the films in your list. I want to get a discussion going as usual. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit the subscribe button as well as the little bell for notifications. Anyway, guys, I will see you next time. Bored Cyborg out. Giant f***ing ants!